Ladies and gentlemen, it's Curtis King of CurtisKingBeats.com, and we're here today with an interview. Of course, you guys told me you wanted to get more interviews, and I am definitely delivering on that promise. Today, we're here with a special guest, Dame. Dame, I had the pleasure of being introduced to Dame personally. I mean, I'd always known about the work that he was and him being really the brains behind the rise of such a monumental label with Funk Volume. You being from me being from the West Coast, there's no way that you don't hear about something like that. There's no way that you don't know, unless you're sleeping under a rock, what's going on with that. But because of a buddy of mine, Tone, shout out to Tone from Bakersfield. He really was the reason why we're sitting here today. And as I spoke to Damien, we officially had a conversation. He let me know he had a lot of exciting things going on that, really align with what my message and the things that I try to present to you guys on a regular basis. So, Dame, thank you for joining us. First and foremost, I would love for you to have your own introduction because you do so much. And I'm pretty sure I didn't get everything, but would definitely love for you to do your introduction and whatnot.
Sure. Well, I appreciate you having me. Number one, I apologize that it's taken so long for us to have interaction, but I guess things work themselves out and are supposed to happen when they're supposed to happen. Because Tone put me on to you years ago, and I've just kind of been watching from a distance. So I've seen kind of some of the things that you've done, and we recently had a chance to have a great conversation. So kind of kicking myself for not, reaching out and establishing that communication earlier. But at least we're getting it in now. But yes, my name's Damien Ritter. Been working in music for the past 8 years. Prior to that, no music experience. I went to UC Berkeley, and after that, worked in the financial services industry. So no music involved outside of me just being a fan. Worked in London for a little bit. Went back and got my MBA at Stanford. So still no music. Thought I was going to go into investment management. Decided to go into consulting instead. So I was working for a company called Deloitte in Chicago for about a year and some change in their strategy and operations division as a management consultant. So still no music. So up until 2008, just a fan of music, hip hop and R&B primarily. And then I got laid off, and that's when I got introduced. That's why I was like, okay, now I need to figure out what I wanted to do. Still, music wasn't an interest in terms of a career. But my little brother hit me and was like, Dame, he was at UC Irvine at the time. He was like, Dame, I'm really not feeling school. He can't really find a major that he really likes. So he wanted to do music full time. So since I had the time to do it, I just had gotten laid off. Wasn't really pressed to jump back into anything. And I was financially stable. I had to save some money up so I could really kind of figure out what I wanted to do. So I decided to help him out. Just so happened that he had a friend that was similarly not in the same position because he was already signed. This happened to be HOPSIN. He was signed to Ruthless at the time, but he was frustrated because he was in a situation that he felt wasn't really benefiting him. He wanted to start his own thing. So that's when we all kind of got together. Again, I didn't have any music experience, no music industry contacts. I had some homies that that had did music, but I was always just kind of on the outside, didn't really know anything. So jumped in it and realized that if you have fans, your fans can unlock opportunities as your fan base grows. So we really just focused on building fans, anything to do to connect with fans, to turn fans as kind of into our promoters, and the word of mouth just spread. So it was a very organic build and momentum as we continue to put out music, continue to engage with fans, running different contests, doing online, live streams with Ustream and live stream at the time, and going heavy on MySpace, pumping
the good old MySpace.
I don't know if you remember a tool called Friend Blaster that would get
yes.
you.
I used that.
Yeah,
I think UI and Lil B were probably the ones that were the mass users of that at that time. Maybe
we
even
were,
Tila Tequila.
we were going hard. So really, anything to either introduce us to new fans or to let current fans know more about what Funk Volume was about,
Sure.
and what the artists were about, to deepen that connection. To really deepen that connection. And like I said, the fans unlock opportunities for you. So as your fan base grows, your fan base gets to a certain point, you're going to be able to tour. The demand is going to be there to tour. You get to a certain point, you might have some sponsorship opportunities.
Right.
So as your fan base grows, it's gonna other people are gonna start paying attention, and it's gonna unlock opportunities along the way. So we just focus on the fans, focus building, connecting with the fans, and that's what we did, and eventually became a full fledged label. We signed Dizzy Wright, we signed Jaron Benton, and we were killing it for quite some time. So
Right.
went from having no industry contacts to being a reputable label, a well
Right.
respected label, and that gave me the platform to be able to build relationships with a lot of people that I still have today, and it's going to help me in my new venture when I bring people in and have guests, on
Absolutely.
this new music education platform that I'm starting.
And we'll definitely be getting into that because I know there's a lot of folks that, especially in my audience, that need to know about it. I got my introduction, but I really want the folks who maybe are unfamiliar, with your position there and your role. I want them to get an opportunity really to know your background. That's why I think it's really interesting that you kind of were moving up the corporate ladder in sort of the traditional sense where you were before you got involved with Funk Volume. So first, it's a two-part question. One part is what was your actual position for those who don't know? So no brainer, but what was your actual position within Funk Volume or your title? And then I asked the other question afterwards, but I guess we'll tackle that one first.
I mean, eventually the title is CEO, but that means nothing along the path, right? So
Right.
in the beginning, I'm the driver, I'm the merch guy, I'm the fake security guard, I'm the PR,
Yeah.
I'm the merchandise manager, I'm the merch guy at the shows. Literally, it was three of us, me, my brother, and Hobson, driving around the country doing shows with people that taking our chances with promoters. Like
Right.
I booked the first tour, so I was also the booking agent. I mean, there's probably a list of 20 roles because in the beginning,
Right.
you don't have the luxury of having separate people play these roles.
Mm-hmm.
You have to step into them. Even on Hobson's end, on the music side, like he didn't have anybody to shoot his videos, so he learned how to shoot them himself.
Right.
So we didn't have anybody to book our tours, so we had to, book them ourselves in the beginning. So
Right.
in the beginning, you can call yourself whatever you want, but you got to be able to do and willing to do or figure out many different roles because
Sure.
there's so many different aspects to being an artist and to building a business around your craft that you can't just. There's very few people. I don't know any that are able to just be an artist or
Right.
or just be one thing. Even if you're
Yeah.
supporting an artist. Um, Independent. It sounds good, cool, and interesting these days, but there's a lot that's entailed in trying to build an independent brand, even if it's just one artist, even if it's not a label. It's still going to be hard, and you're going to wear many hats. So
Sure. So
for
the
sure.
the second part of that, and that's a brilliant answer because I know there's a lot of folks who, get so wrapped up in the title of CEO and they have in their mind this idea that oh, that means that I'm kind of sitting back in my chair smoking a cigar as everybody else is out here kind of working. But I know from being a part of a few different independent labels that's the case. No matter what level of success your label is at, you're going to have to wear different hats. I mean, unless the thing is, if you want to be successful, there's folks
Right.
out there who do play that role, and a lot of folks who play even the manager role, and they sometimes these artists are better off not having that manager who's representing them. But let me ask you this: so, coming from the background that you did, that wasn't solely within music, do you think that there were some advantages of some things that you learned within that corporate field, or that culture? Do you think there was things that kind of gave you an advantage approaching Funk Volume?
For sure, for sure. I think there's a number of things that helped. Because even though it's music, there's still a lot that can be applied from just business. Or even I'll even start before that. There's even a lot that can be applied to just developing a certain level of maturity and professionalism. So the business helps as well, but I think the music industry oftentimes is a very unprofessional environment and a very
Right.
unstructured environment. But I was used to having a certain level of structure and a certain level of professionalism that helped us greatly, in my opinion,
Mm,
bringing that too. Because even though the industry operates a certain way internally, we can have a certain structure to be able to continue to make progress. And develop and try to communicate to the guys why it's important to be a professional, why it's important to show up on time,
right.
why it's important to email people back. I mean, these seem like small things, but they can go a long way in terms of developing your reputation within the industry, because the industry is very small, and especially as you achieve more success, it gets smaller. You're going to continue to see the same people because there's not that many people that are really killing it.
Right.
Independent or mainstream, whatever, it doesn't matter. You're going to continue to see a lot of the same people. So that's number one. I think the structure and the professionalism, but also just as a consultant, the way we kind of try to address problems,
Right.
the way like our approach to problem solving is a very very structured approach. So you know the music industry is not complex, but I was able to kind of break it down in a very simple way, like I was mentioning before, just kind of focusing on the fans. I'm a heavy data guy too, so I always
Right.
had like spreadsheets and stuff like that that was tracking our progress and making sure that we were making progress and continuing to build momentum. So I think it was important in terms of building the foundation and that structure, so that it was solid, so that we could eventually grow and incorporate new artists. So there were a
Right.
lot of things that I think benefit, even though I didn't have any music industry contacts. I think we were able to approach it in a very structured way, and it also allowed me to ask a lot of questions, right? And if
Right.
you ask a lot of questions about an industry, and if the answer is because we've always done it this way, then you can be like, well, we're not doing, like, that's not a strong enough answer to me for me to continue doing things a certain way. So we
Absolutely.
were able to develop, a kind of a new way of doing things internally, because sometimes industries need to be shaken up.
Right.
So for anything, if somebody asks you to do something and you say why, and they're like, because we've always done it this way, you should challenge that. You should challenge it,
Yeah.
uh, because it may not make sense anymore.
Right. And
The
I was,
music.
I'm sorry.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, I was gonna say what's interesting about that is that literally is a foundation of the work that I do today. Is that I looked around, really after going through sort of a soul searching situation. We talked about it earlier, where Hip Hop DX had basically I was in a place where and many people know the story in my audience where success was just it was already happening, and the thing was it was that tipping point that was getting ready to occur. And then I had the epiphany moment that said, okay, right now when I'm in some of my highest of highlights right now, what is it that everybody does at this point? What do I need to do that's the complete opposite? And in my mind, when I read this book called The Go Giver and I was listening to podcasts, something I saw that really was in the sort of the corporate field and even people that were millionaires. And the thing that had in common is that, on this podcast called Entrepreneurs on Fire, one of the questions he asks is, what are your streams of income? And they'll sit there and they'll break it down for you. What I noticed is that about 95% of them, Dame, teaching was a part of that. So to me, I was like, so why isn't that, in our particular culture, teaching is not at the forefront? If this is millionaires who, because we speak about, wealth, and we speak about cars, and we speak about all these things within our culture. And that's just such a blanketed statement for our culture, but a lot of the music that we hear is built around the attaining of wealth. Why is it that we're not doing the things that the wealthy folks are doing? And one of those things we're teaching, right? And so when I had that moment, that's what spawned really the last 3 years of this work that I've been doing to give my way towards my goals. So, I say that to say, when I was a part of this independent label called Black Cloud Music, one of the most inspirational things I saw was the Independent Living documentary. Right. And
Oh,
I don't
dope.
and I don't want this whole interview to be about, the things that have been done before, because you're doing some amazing things today. But I do want it to be a great transition into the work you're doing. So that just to make it make sense why you and I are, having this interview today. But the independent living, I remember there was a particular clip that I saw that just hit me right in the chest, because, there's one thing when you feel like your skill levels at a certain level, and there's one thing when you have support from your local, local area. And then I saw a clip. I believe it was of HOPSIN performing like with the Halloween mask. It was some Halloween event, and it was only a handful of people there. To see the transition go from that to these stadium situation or these huge venue situations where people are all showing out. Malcolm Gladwell talks about the tipping point. Are you familiar with Malcolm Gladwell and whatnot?
Yeah,
So
for sure.
For those of you who are not familiar with Malcolm Gladwell, he talks about this tipping point in which it happens to every single product that becomes a massive success. It goes to these three people that basically helps it become viral, as we would call it today. Let me ask you this: what do you feel really was the tipping point from when you got involved, with your family, got involved with HOPSIN, and then you were working, you were grinding, you were wearing all these hats? What do you feel was the tipping point that really kind of set things forward?
Well, I think I'm always. Well, you said so much I wanted to respond to, but
No worries.
just this question. I mean, I feel like around the time when Hop dropped Illmind 4. But people have to understand, like, this is a process of continually building on small wins. Right. I think it's, you got to have a lot of small wins and kind of build up to this, what you're calling or what Malcolm Gladwell calls the tipping point.
Absolutely.
It doesn't just come out of nowhere, right? So
Sure.
all of the shows you do, all of the interviews you do, I mean, we built a very real, organic following, so that when Hop continued to put out the videos, I think the Illmind 4, that's the one that really caught a lot of attention.
Right.
But around that time was also, I think Tech had reached out to him to do the B.O.B. song, the Am I a Psycho song.
Okay.
And then he got the freshman cover, the XXL freshman cover. But around that time was when things really started to pick up. But that didn't come out of nowhere. I think a lot of times artists, they kind of look for that thing to just make them take off.
Right.
But there was so much that happened before that, for that one thing to even be a possibility. So I always tell artists, like, just continuously build on small wins. Like, don't get too high when great things happen. Don't get too low when bad things happen. Just continue to make progress and take it. Whatever your last win was, take that win and figure out how you can capitalize to get another win or a bigger win.
Right.
But I would say around like the time Illmind 4 for sure.
Sure. Okay. And like I said, I didn't want to make it all about this interview to be all about the funk volume situation, but you get what I'm saying, though. That is that.
No, it's all good.
Right.
It's all good. And I wanted to just I mean, because you talked about also before you asked that question, you talked about how we don't really celebrate learning. I think in the hip hop culture, the boss and the CEO, like, that's celebrated, but we don't really see the journey to that. Like, we miss that whole process, and we want to jump straight to level 10 when you're on level 1 and you can't even. So you see 10 and you're on 1, but you don't see the steps to get to 2.
Right.
So I think a lot of cats are getting lost, and the work that you're doing and the thing that I'm starting, I think is very important, so cats can start to see the 2 through 9.
Right.
So, but anyway, sorry.
No, you're good. And I know I know myself, and I'm very long-winded sometimes. I get so excited about this information. I like to flow it out, but obviously, my brand is not built upon controversy. My brand is not built upon gossip, but obviously the elephant in the room is, I'm pretty sure not most of the comments, but some of the comments will probably, they want to know, I guess the situation when, HOPSIN kind of went public with a lot of these things. I'm not so much interested in the controversy. I mean, if you want to explain about the situation, by all means, but what I want to really tap into is, for you, how first of all, how does that affect you? Because these are people that you know personally. How does it affect you? And then, being that it was so public, how do you approach business from that point? Because I think that more people can benefit from that answer than, what happened? My thing is, like I said, we're not built on controversy or gossip. We're really built on, as a businessman, how do you then rebrand when something goes that public? into what you're doing now? Because what you're doing right now is remarkable, and I can't wait to start getting into questions about that.
So yeah, I mean, I think I have to talk about it because the fall of Funk Volume and that disaster, that crash and burn, is kind of what contributed to my passion for music education. Because a large part of the reason that Funk Volume doesn't exist is because of lack of education, lack of music, some very basic music business knowledge. And if Hop was learning at the same pace I was in terms of understanding the music business, I think we would have had a more mature conversation, a more level conversation. So part of coming out of that experience is helping other artists see eye to eye with business people, and if artists educate themselves, they will be more on equal footing, and there'll probably be less tension, less skepticism,
Right.
and less possibility for drama if you understand exactly kind of how the business works. So I'm using that situation as an kind of an example, but it also fueled my passion and let me know like this is necessary. Like this shit happened to me,
Right.
and got taken to a whole nother level, of course.
Right. Right. Right.
Going public, but but separate from that, seeing something that you put your life into every day, like literally every day for 8 years, go away in a very short amount of time, like that it's tough to deal with.
Right.
So it was hard. I couldn't launch the Music Entrepreneur Club in this way last year because I just wasn't prepared. I wasn't emotionally in the right space for it because,
Sure.
again, after you invest your life into something for 8 years and see it go away for probably the dumbest reason in hip hop history,
Right. Right.
like it took a while to kind of, do I even want to fuck with music anymore?
Right.
Like something like that could happen and you just want to run as fast as you can away from the shit because it's like, man, it's just stupid. Like this
Right.
type of stuff doesn't happen in other industries. But yeah, I'm happy to talk about it. Happy to address it. I mean, I
Sure.
don't, I'm not dodging any questions. I'm
No,
comfortable.
no, and I
So
know, and I knew that coming into this. I always respected that, even with, shout out to my homie Chuck Dizzle and Head and Bliss at Homegrown. I mean, I think that you always approach it in a very professional manner, and I'm always, I'm not always about the hype of a situation because I believe there's two sides to every story. What I respected about you is that you've always, you've been consistent with everything that you've said. And that's why I asked you that question. It's not even more so to get into your business. I think that there's artists right now who, because we're in the culture of things going viral, that you don't want to go viral. And once a video is out there, there's no taking it down, right? So that
right.
everybody can. I think there's artists out here who can learn from this experience because and you're in the process still of rebranding yourself and you're doing it successfully. What is really the mindset that somebody should have going forward when sort of the dirty laundry has been put out there for the public consumption? What do you think is really the mindset to have?
I think it's just understanding. Like if you are a good person and you know the truth about whatever happened, like the public can believe whatever. Like as time passes,
Mm-hmm.
and this is like I just needed time. I just needed time to pass. I didn't want to jump out there and do anything crazy, even though like you feel like things are being said that aren't true. I
Right.
don't I don't have the platform to combat that. So it was like, damn, just chill out, go through this experience. Because a lot of times when we're going through a tough experience, our first reaction is to try to get out or to do something,
Mm-hmm.
is to do something like drastic, when the best thing to do is to sit in it. As uncomfortable as it is,
Wow.
as uncomfortable as it is,
Right.
when you're in a tough situation, our first reaction is to try to get out. But there was really nothing. I had to sit with it and to understand exactly what I was going through, um, identify the feelings that I was going through, and really try to process that. So I just needed time, and in time things play out. People will see kind of. I did do a couple of interviews, and talk with a few people, and I think over time people will see kind of what I was trying to say, because I don't
Right.
think people So sometimes people don't get things right. They can't see it. They're not going to understand. And even when I'm dealing with art, even when I'm working with artists, it's like
Right.
sometimes, people have to experience things on their own, or they need more data. They just need more
Right.
data over time. So that's really all I needed was time to play out. And I think now I'm just more in a comfortable space, um, to talk about the things and to use. I still don't believe all press is good press.
Right.
Uh, I still, I would
I
have
never agree
preferred,
with that myself.
I,
Yeah.
I would have preferred not to go through that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I am going to use it as an opportunity to teach,
Sure.
because I think there's a lot to learn from my situation. It took a lot to get to where we were, so there's a lot to learn from the rise up, and then there's a lot to learn from the crash and burn.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't, I want to work with people that don't have to learn from their own mistakes. They can learn from my mistakes and from the people that I introduced them to in the Music Entrepreneur Club, like, so
Right.
they don't have to make these mistakes.
And,
Um, so it's an education process for
you know,
sure.
and I sincerely appreciate that answer because we talked about on the phone priorly that artists and producers out there that are watching, that are listening, even those of you that want to kind of start your own imprint, understand that what Dame said earlier about wearing multiple hats. This is not something that, especially when you start bringing on artists, when people don't understand, people don't know that Curtis King was, it started off as a label. And I learned very early when I had 6 artists. I said, "This is this is not for me," because the thing is, you're not just balancing projects, you're not just balancing stems, you're balancing personalities, you're balancing mood swings, and as artists, you. I always say rappers sometimes are the most sensitive creatures on the world. I don't care if it's gangster rap, I don't care what it is, because we use terms to describe the music, like I'm not feeling this beat. We're so feely about so many different things, and I know a lot of rappers will probably be mad, like, no, no, you know what I mean when I say that. No, we're by nature, we're artists, and we're sensitive to our surroundings and our environments, and that's why we describe them in such detail. When we're coming in contact with somebody who, like a Dame who's handling the business, they see the numbers. They have to also kind of be your mentor. They have to be your brother. They have to be your business partner. They have to, they have to wear so many hats. So my respect for you is extremely high because I know what that responsibility entails. Even when I felt a certain way as an artist about my label that I was on, I had to eventually mature and understand, like, you know what, if the tables would turn, if the shoes were on different feet, I could not do what the CEO was in charge of, and I understand how much of a responsibility it is. But let's sweep that off the rug. I want to talk about Music Entrepreneur Club. Let's just start, for starters, what exactly is it? I know my audience is very eager to hear about that.
Dope. So yeah, the Music Entrepreneur Club, I'm going to build it to be the best music education and networking platform that exists on the internet.
Dope.
So it's a, like I said, it is a music education platform. So we're gonna meet twice a week, live via video conference, and there will be a topic every week. So it's a very comprehensive program. So it'll eventually cover everything from music production to management to touring to publishing, merchandising, everything. Every week will be a different topic. So there'll be a lecture slash discussion on one day, and then the second day you'll get to ask questions that day. It'll be live and interactive. And then the second day will be on that same topic, but it'll be a little informal. It'll be another session to answer any questions that somebody maybe thought about after the first session. And then we'll also use that session to talk about current events, to any current news in the music industry that affects artists.
Sure.
We'll use that session to talk about that as well. So that'll be kind of the structure every week. Every session will be videotaped. We'll also strip the audio. So for members that weren't able to attend live, they'll be able to go back and watch old sessions or listen to old sessions. And then once a month, at least once a month, I'll bring in a guest. So you'll not only be learning from me and my perspectives, but I'll be bringing in guests. Curtis, hopefully, you'll join the sessions here and
No
there.
question about it. I'll be there.
Um, so, I was talking about how I didn't know anybody in the music industry before I got in. I've been blessed to know a lot of people now,
Right.
and using my network to bring people in to discuss certain things, I think is going to be awesome. Because there's not a one way to approach music these days. I mean, depending on your brand, and there's a bunch of different variables about how you specifically are going to approach music. So you need to hear from multiple people, and
Right.
there's people that have a deeper knowledge than me in particular areas. So publishing, for example, like, I understand publishing, but I probably am not the best person to run the whole session. So
Sure.
I'm going to bring somebody in that does that day in and day out, so people can really understand and get their question answered. Um, a lot of books are outdated, or
Mm-hmm.
don't reach artists where they're at. Because it takes a minute to write a book, and the music industry it changes so fast that by the time the book comes out, there's probably a number of things that need to be changed. Uh,
Right.
so, and in conferences are often a waste of time. There are a few that are good, but they're often a waste of time. But they're very expensive if they're not in your city. So
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be paying for travel costs, the hotel, the flight, and then the conference is probably going to hit you for at least a few $100s as well. So
Right.
it's not very cost effective, and there's not that many good ones. So having this club, this interactive, kind of like a class every week, I think is a really dope way to get information out, and for you to interact with established professionals.
Right.
Uh, and then there's nothing like it in the music industry. We're going to build it to be something extremely credible. You're going to hear from people that have a lot of experience and a lot of credentials, and I'm excited to get it going. It's going to be dope because I know it's necessary. It's
Right.
very necessary.
So necessary. Sometimes, when I think about some of my peers really within the YouTube who use this platform to share their information, it does sometimes feel like a lonely world, even though there's a lot more people who are starting to understand that this is not just, something cool to do. This is not just this is not a financial come up. This is literally people who are saying, look, I have this abundance of information that
Hmm.
I know is still of tremendous value to a lot of, and that's another question I had too, is that this is not just, from what I understand, this is not just for, rappers, singers, producers, and just the creatives. This also applies to managers and, some people that are behind the scenes, correct?
For sure. Everybody's got to get on the same page. Like everybody right now, there's just everybody's learning from different sources, some bad sources, some good sources,
Right.
their own experiences, what have you. Like they're managers need to be a better manager. You got to understand the artist perspective.
Right.
Or even a producer. There's oftentimes tension between artist and producer, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
producers are always posting memes about how they're not getting paid.
Right.
But there's things on the artist side. It's not always that the artist is trying to take advantage of the producer. I mean, sometimes that does happen,
Mm-hmm.
but there's other things involved. Like calculating royalties is not an easy thing to do. Every quarter, like you got to have a team that's well structured and organized to be able to. So we'll talk about these things to kind of
Right.
lower the tension, and eradicate a lot of the skepticism that just hovers
Mm-hmm.
over the music industry, right? Because
Right.
I tell people all the time, it's like there are shady people, just like there's shady people. There's probably like you're probably skeptical of your mechanic because mechanics have that too. It's like
Yeah.
this guy's probably gonna tell me I need a new muffler when I
Mm-hmm.
don't, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a cloud of skepticism because we've seen the NWA movies, we've
Yeah.
seen the TLC story. You saw HOPSIN video that has 30 million views, like Dame is the
Yeah.
safest cat. So there's this cloud of skepticism, but you got to build with people in this industry. You got
Right.
to build, and in order to navigate this industry without the skepticism and the paranoia that everybody's going to take advantage of you, all you got to do is educate yourself.
That's it. That's
You
it. And
can't-
there's way too many resources not to do it. Because when I started making beats, Dame, I was working on a PlayStation 1 and a game called MTV Generator. And actually, shout out to Tone, because Tone actually purchased me a copy of this again, just being a supportive figure out here. But he purchased that game for me. That game is the first thing that I ever had as an experience of being a music producer. And
So
there's no books you can't go to the library and figure out how to be a PlayStation producer. There at the time, even YouTube wasn't what it was or what it is today. So, there's so many more resources out here. And I gotta say, for those that are involved in the music industry that are listening and watching this right now, you must, even if you are, you're really tight about your money and you're really skeptical about what you invest into, you have to take chances. Whenever you invest money into yourself, it's never a waste of money, because you're going to get something from the experience. Even if you don't learn anything at all, I really feel like if you're investing in yourself, you were investing in yourself. And anything that you invest into, it has its own risk. And I think that what Dame is explaining with this Music Entrepreneur Club, I'm just sitting here like, yes, this needs to happen. This is the time period for it. I think that, a lot more people are realizing that, when we talk about like the NWA movies and like the TLC movies, I look at it now because I'm an artist, and immediately the easiest feeling to do is to sympathize with the artist, right? But then I start to think about, although there are shady people in the music industry and that are sort of the suits per se, I do feel like, if you are not reading your contracts, if you're not being thorough about the information, we as artists and producers got to take responsibility when we don't read the fine print. Producers got to take responsibility when you're sending beats out to an artist that you have no kind of networking with. You got his email off of the Twitter, and now you're mad because you don't have a relationship. That's just not how relationships are built. We certainly appreciate your time. We know your time is valuable, and we appreciate you sharing your information with so many, aspiring artists, aspiring producers, and just folks that just really want to see success in their life. There's so many lessons that can be learned from you. So we really appreciate your time, Dame. And just once again, let them know where they can reach you at if they have any further questions about the Music Entrepreneur Club, or they just want to kind of pick your brain.
Sure. The website will be musicentrepreneurclub.com. And then I'm on Twitter, Dame_still moving, or Instagram, Dame.stillmoving. Pretty easy to find and reach out to. I wasn't as active over the past year, but I'm about to jump in it, just like I try to instruct and encourage artists to do it. So a lot of the things that I'll be talking about in terms of social media and stuff. So it's going to be fun, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. Well, thank you once again for your time, Dame, and everyone that's been out here listening. Once again, this is Curtis King at CurtisKingBeats.com. You have a good one.